Hi, and welcome to a fresh episode of Platypod Perspectives. You know how this works. We show you an amazing image where photographers look at that and they just go, wow, how the heck was that captured? Where's it from? What camera? What settings? And then we talk to the artist behind it. And this time around, his name is Matt Suess. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, Larry, for having me. Excited to talk to your audience and talk about this photo here.
Yeah, it's a great image. So I'm going to show it one more time and then we're going to jump right in and tell us, where is this from?
All right. Well, I'm sure a lot of photographers are aware of this location here, but maybe there's a couple people that haven't heard of it yet. It's one of those icon shots that you see a lot of this on the Instagram, and it's definitely a spot that a lot of photographers want to go to. So that is Mesa Arch in Canyonlands National Park down in southern Utah. And it's about probably about an hour drive from Moab to get out there into the park. And then it's a short walk, maybe a half hour walk. I think it's a little bit less than a mile to walk out there. It's a really nice, easy trail to get out there and photograph this arch. And the great thing about this arch is that you want to be there for sunrise. That is when you have the magical moments that you see in this photo.
All right. So that was before sunrise. And I noticed that there weren't any other people in the image either. How did you do that?
Oh man, this place is so popular these days. There are a ton of people in this location, and that arch. I remember the first time I went there years ago to photograph that. I was actually surprised how actually small the arch is and how small the footprint is where you have to photograph from. And boy, that morning there was probably at least 20 or 30 other photographers all trying to get their shot at that morning. But everyone was behind me, and you end up making a line when you're photographing this area there, and it's literally like standing room only because that line goes a couple people deep. It can be really challenging to photograph there if you don't get there early enough.
No pressure. Okay. So you had lots of other photographers there. You had to do a
Hmm.
lot of things quickly. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what camera did you use? What lens did you use? And a little bit about your settings.
Yeah, so I'm a OM system ambassador. Some people may still remember the Olympus name. We switched over to OM system a couple years ago, and this was my gear here. This was what I was using, the OM1 Mark II camera, new camera that came out recently. And I was using a wide angle zoom lens, and it's a 7 to 14 millimeter lens, f2.8. Now, this is on a micro four thirds camera, and whenever you hear millimeters talking about micro four thirds, all you really have to do is just double those millimeter numbers to get the equivalent of a full frame camera. So again, this was a 7 to 14, but on a full frame camera, that would be equivalent in millimeters to a 14 to 28 millimeter lens.
Okay. So let's talk camera settings. What were you
Yeah.
doing? Because you have beautiful lens flare, not
Hmm.
incorrect, but very correct lens flare. So how did you
Yeah.
pull that off?
Yeah, so lens flare, every wide angle lens is different. And usually the better quality lens that you have, the better lens flare you're going to get. So if you have a bunch of wide angle lenses, what I recommend doing is going out and testing them with the lens flare to see which one gives you those rays, the sharpest rays. Again, not all lenses are created equal. And it's important to note too that if you're shooting with a traditional DSLR camera, a mirrored camera, not the mirrorless cameras now. Be careful when you're doing this. Use your camera in live view as opposed to looking through the viewfinder there, because you do not want to burn out your eyes when looking at the sun, and that is a threat if you're using a mirrored camera. So yeah, the secret is finding out which wide angle lens is going to be best for that sunburst. And then you want to bump up your f-stop. So I was shooting this at f16, and be careful not going up to the maximum like f22 on most lenses, because then you can start getting what's called diffraction and a little sharpening loss. But usually f16, f18 is going to give really good results for the sunburst. And then the other secret ingredient is really getting that sun on the edge of something, so that the edge of whatever it is blocking part of that light. And we can see in this photo here, the sun is just coming up, so part of it is being blocked still by the horizon. You can get this same technique like if you're shooting fall foliage and shooting through the trees, and you have the sun just partially blocked by a tree branch, and get that sunburst effect too. That's another way of doing it. But the secrets are really high f-stop number, f16, f18, getting that sun on the edge of something and firing away.
And the setup that you have on the desk in front of you, is that what you were using out there?
It is, yeah, and this was very beneficial out there. Uh, we have a behind the scenes photo that we're going to show right now that shows this setup when I was out there photographing. And again, there is not a lot of room, especially where I was shooting from. This is sort of a little bit of a new location. I was shooting a little bit more to the right than what a lot of people do and what I used to do beforehand, too. So, um, I wasn't shooting as directly straight on the arch. And so I was from an angle, and there is literally a drop off right in front of me. And you got to be a little bit careful when you're sitting up at the edge. But there was no room for a tripod, and I was photographing this. This was actually during one of my workshops that I teach out there, and had all my clients spread out throughout the area there to each get their own unique shot on this arch. And there was a just a regular photographer right next to me, and it was interesting. I see him struggling. He was doing he didn't have the setup that I had that made this really easy. So he was mounting his camera on a beanbag and trying to get it all level and trying to get the shot. And he had no really good adjustments to be able to control his shot outside of where he could put that beanbag. By having this on the Platypod Extreme and then having my Platyball, I can move this around. I also had my the handle here that if I needed to get a little bit higher of an extension, I could put that on there. I don't think I needed it for that shot, but this allowed me to get really nice and low and intimate and be able to move the camera around, have full control over the composition. Because I like to do my composition out in the field as opposed to cropping later. So this setup was perfect for this location.
I think one of the things that really struck me, because I've seen the arch photos before, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen it so close to the arch, like you were saying, and then also have the whole arch in it. Because when you get so close, so you had to do a different angle than what we're used to seeing. And I think that's what's so striking about it. Very,
Mm-hmm.
very impressive. Now, you also said that you do workshops. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm a photo educator. I've been a photo educator leading photo workshops for probably over 13 years now. And I do them domestically and internationally. Actually, I just got back from a workshop in Canada last week. I was in the Dolomites a couple of weeks before that. Got some workshops coming up in Lofoten, Norway for the Aurora, the winter Aurora. And yeah, I love going out there with photographers and sharing my knowledge. I've been a professional photographer for over 30 years in all sorts of categories, from photojournalism to weddings to landscape and wildlife photography, and just love getting out with clients and showing them the world and showing them how to create better photos when on location.
How can people find out about those workshops? You have them on a website? Or are they on Facebook? Where's stuff written down?
Yeah, very easy. Just remember Matt Suess Photo, MattSuessphoto, and that's my website, mattsuesphoto.com. You can find me on the socials at Matt Suess Photo, and yeah, that's the way to get in touch with me.
Matt, that is fantastic. I've learned from you, and I really do appreciate that image and how you've kind of gone to a different place. Oh, one last thing I wanted to ask you. In post processing, did you have to erase any people?
No, no people at all. But I did have a couple little lens flares that were from dust on the lens. So when you're photographing in the sun, make sure your lens is as clean as possible. And trust me, even if you get it as clean as possible, you're still going to see some little dust flare ups and things like that. So I had just a little bit of circular dust lights that were in those rays that I had to remove. And funny story was that I was, just a small little circle there that I was using to remove. And this is when Photoshop came out with the generative new version of their generative AI. And so I used that to just get rid of that small little circle, posted it on the socials, and all of a sudden I'm getting flagged for an AI photo for just using that to remove a little bit of a dust spot. So a little bit of controversy that came out from using that. But yeah, and then the way I shot it, I actually bracketed it. Usually I try not to bracket. I prefer using filters out in the field. But with this shot here, shooting directly into the sun, there was no way to place a filter because I would have darkened the top of the arch. So this was a five exposure bracket that I did combined it in Lightroom.
Very cool. That helps me a lot. I hope it helps our viewers quite a bit, learning how you took this shot And now they also know where they can follow you and find out even more. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Folks, this is the kind of thing that we do in Platypod Perspectives. We find a great photo, a great photographer who can explain what the heck they did so that you can learn from them, like I'm learning from Matt, and take your own shots. And I can't wait to get my shot of that Mesa Arch. That was just a gorgeous shot. We'll see you again next time on Platypod Perspectives. Tune in because you never know what you're about to learn.